In the early 19th century, a time when the world was largely mapped by men and history was written by their hands, one woman defied every convention of her era to become a legend of the high seas. This is the story of Charlotte Badger, Australia's first female pirate. Our story begins in Worcester, England, around 1778. Like many poor women of her time, Charlotte's life was a struggle. To survive, she resorted to petty crime. In 1796, she was caught breaking into a house and stealing several guineas and a silk handkerchief. This act, born of desperation, sealed her fate. She was sentenced to 7 years of penal transportation to the distant, harsh colony of New South Wales. Imagine being torn from everything you know, destined for a land you've only heard of in grim whispers. Charlotte endured the harrowing journey aboard a convict ship. Arriving in Australia in 1801, she was assigned as a domestic servant in the colony, a life of thankless labor under the thumb of colonial masters. But Charlotte was not one to be easily subdued. She was described as having a violent temper and a spirit that refused to be broken. For 5 years she served her time, likely dreaming of freedom, of a life beyond servitude. Her chance would come in a most unexpected way. In 1806, her sentence served, Charlotte was a free woman, but still trapped in the colony with few prospects. She, along with her young daughter, boarded a ship called the Venus. It was a colonial brigantine, a government-owned vessel, chartered by a man named Captain Samuel Chase. The ship was bound for Van Diemen's Land, modern-day Tasmania, to deliver supplies. Among the crew and passengers were other ex-convicts and desperate souls. The conditions on board were brutal. Captain Chase was known for his cruelty, reportedly flogging the women for sport. The rations were meager, and the atmosphere was a powder keg of resentment. One night, as the Venus lay at anchor in Port Dalrymple, the simmering tensions exploded. While Captain Chase was ashore, the convicts and crew, led by a man named John Lancashire, saw their opportunity. They had endured enough. They decided to seize the ship. And in this mutiny, Charlotte Badger was no passive bystander. Accounts from the time paint her as a key figure in the uprising. Armed with a pistol, she was reportedly a perfect demon, whipping the men into a frenzy and leading the charge to take control of the vessel. They cut the anchor cables and set sail, leaving the furious Captain Chase stranded on the shore, watching his ship disappear over the horizon. The Venus was now a pirate ship, and Charlotte Badger was one of its commanders. What would you do with a stolen ship and newfound freedom on the vast Pacific Ocean? For Charlotte and her fellow mutineers, the world was suddenly open. They were outlaws, but they were free. Their first stop was the Bay of Islands in New Zealand. At the time, this area was a chaotic frontier, a haven for whalers, traders, sailors, and the local Maori tribes. It was a place where the rules of the British Empire held little sway. Upon their arrival, the mutineers' fragile alliance began to fracture. They ransacked the ship, dividing the spoils. Some of the men decided to stay, settling among the Maori. John Lancashire, the initial leader of the mutiny, took a portion of the supplies and went ashore with his followers. But Charlotte, along with her partner Benjamin Kelly and another mutineer named John Rawson, had other plans. They refused to give up their life on the waves. They remained on the Venus, a small but formidable band of pirates. For the next few months, Charlotte Badger and her companions lived a life that was unthinkable for a woman of her time. They sailed the waters around New Zealand, plundering ships and trading with local communities. One particularly bold account tells of them attacking a vessel, with Charlotte, pistol in hand, leading the raid. She became a fearsome figure, a name whispered in fear and awe in the ports and settlements of the South Pacific. She wasn't just a passenger or a captive. She was an active participant, a leader in this daring new life. Their reign of terror, however, was destined to be short-lived. The pirate life is a dangerous one, and the vast ocean is an unforgiving master. The ultimate fate of the Venus is shrouded in some mystery. One popular account suggests that their luck finally ran out. The Mbori, who had initially been trading partners, grew tired of the pirates' demands. A dispute over the ship's cannons and gunpowder escalated. In a climactic and violent confrontation, local warriors reportedly attacked and burned the Venus, killing Benjamin Kelly and John Rawson. But what happened to Charlotte? This is where her story transforms from history into legend. According to that same account, Charlotte and her daughter were not on the ship when it was destroyed. They were ashore and watched the vessel that had been their symbol of freedom go up in flames. Stranded once again, but this time in a land far more foreign and potentially more hostile than Australia. From this point, the historical record blurs and tales diverge. Some say she was taken in by a local chief in the Bay of Islands and lived out the rest of her days there, integrating into the Mbori community. It's a romantic notion, the English pirate queen finding a new home and a new life among the people of New Zealand. Another, perhaps more plausible, story comes from a report a decade later. In 1818, a ship captain visiting Tonga reported meeting a white woman who had been living on the island for years. She was the last survivor of a band of mutineers. Could this have been Charlotte Badger? It's tantalizingly possible. She would have been around 40 years old, a survivor hardened by years of unimaginable adventure and hardship. This version suggests she eventually found passage on a ship bound for America, disappearing from the pages of history forever, perhaps finally finding a peaceful life in the New World. We may never know for certain what happened to Charlotte Badger and her daughter. Did she die in New Zealand? Did she find refuge in Tonga? Or did she sail away to America? A ghost on the tides of history? Her story, pieced together from convict records, captain's logs, and fragmented accounts, leaves us with more questions than answers. But the lack of a definitive ending doesn't diminish her significance. Charlotte Badger's story is a powerful testament to the human will to survive and be free. She was a woman who was dealt the worst possible hand: poverty, conviction, exile. Yet she refused to be a victim. She seized an opportunity, however dangerous, to chart her own course. In an age when women were confined to the domestic sphere, she commanded a pirate ship. She defied an empire and became a legend. Her name might not be as famous as Blackbeard or Calico Jack, but Charlotte Badger, Australia's first and only female pirate, earned her place in the annals of maritime history as a woman who chose a life of dangerous freedom over one of safe servitude. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this story as fascinating as I did, please hit that like button and subscribe for more tales of incredible figures from history.